Hello guys, just before we begin I wanted to say thanks for 100 subscribers. Thanks to everyone who's taken the time to leave a like or leave a comment on the videos. It's very much appreciated and it helps spread my videos to a wider audience so that more people can benefit from my educational content. So thanks very much, and here's to hoping that the channel continues to grow. So today I want to bring you my Magicka Templar build for the Greymoor patch. This is a very fun build that I've been playing solo as well as in small groups for a couple of weeks, ever since the patch came out. This is a high elf vampire heavy armor Magicka Templar, and it works really well, like I say, both in group situations as well as solo situations. Traditionally, Magicka Templars have always been very strong in groups, but they do tend to struggle a bit sometimes when they're being played solo. They're not the most forgiving solo class. But I find that out of all the Magicka Templar builds that I've played over the years, this one actually works quite well in solo situations too. And we've made a couple of adjustments to our typical setup just to allow us to excel more when we're by ourselves as well. So, getting into the sets to begin with, we are running on the front bar Stoon's Favour. Now, some of you may have seen this set before. This is a new crafted set from Greymoor. You don't need to have the Greymoor expansion. You can also get someone to craft this for you and trade it to you, or you can look for this in guild stores. But this is overall a very strong offensive set, and it works very well, particularly on Magicka Templar. Looking at the set bonuses, so the 2-piece gives us spell damage, the 3-piece gives us spell pen, 4-piece gives us spell damage, and the 5-piece, when you deal damage to an enemy who is off balance, your physical and spell penetration is increased by over 5k. Now that's a huge amount of spell penetration. If you compare this to something like Spinners, that only gives 3.5k, so this is already a big chunk of damage whenever you hit someone who is off balance. And on Magicka Templar, as you'll see shortly, it's very easy for us to actually set enemies off balance. So this is a very potent offensive set, and it adds a lot to our damage. So we are running this as the lightning staff on the front bar, infused with the shock damage glyph. This lets us proc minor vulnerability very readily and very reliably. We are then running a heavy cuirass, reinforced with a tri-stack glyph. Heavy legs, impenetrable with a tri-stack glyph. And heavy sabatons, impenetrable with a max magic glyph. Our second set is Winter's Respite. We run this as light gloves, light sash, necklace, ring, and a back bar frost staff. Now this is a really potent set, so this gives 2-piece Magicka recovery, 3 and 4-piece max Magicka, and then the 5-piece casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground will create a circle of healing frost for 10 seconds, which gives us a strong heal over time, not only to ourselves, but to any allies or NPCs who are also standing in the vicinity. This lasts for 10 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown, so theoretically you can keep this up 100% of the time. Just to show what this looks like, so when we put our rune focus down, you can see this circle of frost that spawns around me, and it's continuously healing me while I'm standing in the AoE. If I come over here just to drop it down again, so you can see it basically extends to the entirety of this little Ayleid plinth over here. Very powerful set. So we run this just on the back bar as a powered frost staff with the frost damage glyph, but we also run 4 pieces on the body with the sash gloves, neck and ring, which means that even when we're on our front bar we get the 4-piece max Magicka from this set, always active all the time. Our monster set, as you may have seen here, is Zaan. Now people tend to have mixed feeling about this set. Some people think this is a very cheesy set. I think it's a very strong set when you're playing solo, because it lets you get a big spike of damage on one single player and burst them down quickly and get them out of the fight. But this is really up to personal preference. There are 2 other monster sets that you can use here instead of Zaan, which both work really well. Them being Grothdar, which is excellent in team situations, or Valkyr's Scoria, which is a bit less reliable but has much more of a bursty nature to it as well. Both these sets are perfectly fine alternatives to Zaan as well. We are running Zaan as a heavy sturdy helmet with a tri-stack glyph, and an impen shoulder also with a tri-stack glyph. Our final set piece is Malekith's Band of Brutality. This increases your damage done by 25%, but obviously takes away your ability to deal critical damage. However, it just means that we're much more consistent with our damage, and we completely ignore any pieces of impenetrable that the opponent might be wearing. And overall, it's the way to go if you're running heavy armor on a Magicka build in the Greymoor patch, no questions asked. Just reviewing the jewellery glyphs, so the Malekith band is infused with a reduced spell cost glyph. The ring of Winter's Respite is arcane with a reduced spell cost glyph, and the amulet is arcane with a spell damage glyph. Getting on to our skills, on the front bar we are running Purifying Light as a delayed burst, very strong skill, especially if you can get your Zan to proc on the target that you've put this on. At the end of 6 seconds it will explode, doing a proportion of the damage you've done to the target as an additional burst on top. This can't crit unfortunately while we're running the Malekith band, but because the Malekith band gives us such consistent damage, this tends to be pretty beefy when it does explode at the end of the 6 seconds. Very strong skill. The second skill on the front bar is Toppling Charge. This is a very powerful skill. Almost all Magicka Templars run this skill, and with good reason. So this is a gap closer that also stuns the target and is guaranteed to set them off balance if they're not immune. And this is why we can run Stuns so easily on a Magicka Templar, because it very readily procs the off balance with the Toppling Charge, so we can very reliably get the spell pen bonus from the 5-piece. Next skill is Puncturing Sweep. This is the classic Templar spammable. After that we've got Degeneration as our major sorcery buff, and Elemental Drain rounds out the front bar. This is very good because it shores up some of Heavy Armor's weaknesses, namely a lack of spell penetration natively and difficulties with sustain. Very important skill, try and keep this up all the time. Our front bar ultimate is Crescent Sweep. This is a strong, no cast time, high damage ultimate, very cheap, only 73 ultimate cost, so this is almost cast as an additional skill, you know, it's back so quickly if you're killing things. Very strong ability. On the back bar we are running Elusive Mist. This is our mobility tool. As you can see there with the 2 cost reduction glyphs that we're running, the cost is absolutely minuscule. In fact, if you put a rune down, which is constantly giving you back the Magicka, you can see that our Magicka bar is barely moving at all. We can sustain Mist on this build for a very long time. If people are attacking you actively and they're also proccing your heavy armor passives, which also gives Magicka back, you can sustain Mist pretty much indefinitely. The other thing to note is because we're only a stage 1 vampire, we only get a 10% reduction to our health recovery. So our health recovery is decent at 833 here. So while you're in the Mist form, obviously you can't be healed by anything, but you can get your health recovery constantly ticking underneath that. So Mist form is invaluable on this build. It lets you get that bit of mobility that Magplar lacks, and it also is a very useful cheap way to break roots and snares and line of sight. The next skill on the back bar, as you can see, is Wall of Frost. On this build we are using the Unstable morph that explodes after 10 seconds. Now this also procs Winter's Respite out of interest, but the real purpose of this is to create a sort of no-go zone, a zone where you control what the enemy is doing. This has a very high likelihood of immobilizing the enemy because of the Frost glyph that we're running on the back bar, and it also continuously refreshes the back bar enchant because it is a ground-based weapon skill. Next skill is Ritual of Retribution. This is not only our cleanse but also a powerful heal over time and damage over time, all at the same time. So as you can see here, just standing in our ritual, between the Winter's Respite and the Ritual of Retribution, we're getting about 2.5 to 3k healing per second, which is nothing to be scoffed at really. That's a very powerful heal over time, and it really lets you play Magicka Templar in a sort of controller sense, in that this is your control zone where you've got your buffs up, you've got your debuffs up for the enemy, and if they're coming in here, you're in complete control. You've got the advantage. Very strong skill. Lastly, sorry, before I forget, Honor the Dead. This is our burst heal, and we're running this morph that gives us resources back if you cast this on a injured target. And finally, we're running Channeled Focus. This is our armor buff, which gets stronger if we stand in the circle itself, but at all times it also gives us 240 magicka back every second, equivalent to approximately 480 magicka recovery. And as I've shown, this works really, really well with Mistform, because Mistform cuts off all of your magicka recovery, but it doesn't cut off any other extrinsic sources of magicka return, such as Channeled Focus, such as Elemental Drain, and such as your Heavy Armor passive as well. Backbar Ultimate is Swarming Scion. This is for the bigger fights, if you're fighting in a keep, or if you're fighting with a group and you want to be very, very tanky and fighting multiple opponents. This gives all of that to you. It is fairly expensive at 300 ultimate, but the benefits are extremely strong, and it does last a full 20 seconds as well. I'll show some clips of this in the gameplay segment of the video as well. In terms of consumables, we are running Bewitched Sugar Skulls as our food and Tri-Stat Potions as our main potion. Just to give you an idea of our stats. So on the front bar, you can see here that we are sitting at nearly 3k spell damage, 34k max magicka. You can see that our magicka recovery stat is fairly low here. That's on purpose actually, because we can sustain fine with this magicka recovery stat, and we actually get far more benefit out of the reduced cost glyphs in a heavy armor vampire than we do with the magicka recovery glyphs. Our stat page isn't the most impressive, but that's because we're focusing a lot into hidden factors that aren't really represented here, namely focusing really highly into spell penetration, into reduced cost, and into proc sets, with the offensive proc set with the Zan, and a defensive proc set with the Winter's Respite as well. But nevertheless, we are fairly tanky with nearly 30k maximum health, and a very healthy 17k max stamina as well, which gives us a good deal of staying power. Going into our champion points. In the green tree we are running 66 Warlord, 3 Sprinter, 1 Siphoner, 64 Arcanist, 19 Tenacity, 66 Shadow Ward, 51 Tumbling. On this build we do block a lot and we do roll dodge a lot, so it's good to stack these points fairly high. 37 Blessed, nothing into Elfborn because we're running the Malakath band, 56 Elemental Expert and 59 Spell Erosion, 81 Master at Arms. Jabs, puncturing sweeps counts as direct damage, and a lot of our burst is direct damage as well, such as the Purifying Light Explosion and the Crescent Sweep as well, so it's good to stack this nice and high. But we also have a fair number of dots as well, namely the Zan, the Channeled Focus, the Purifying Ritual, the Wall of Frost, and also our Entropy as well. So Thaumaturge gets a couple of points on this build as well. Red Tree, we're running 66 Ironclad, 38 Resistant, 43, 43, 28, 3 Expert Defender, 22 Heavy Armor Focus, and 27 Quick Recovery. Now, I just want to talk very briefly before the gameplay segment about the sort of fight mentality that you want to have as a Magicka Templar. Now, Magicka Templar is a lot like Magicka DK this patch, in that your survivability comes from a combination of your heal over time, as well as your ability to block high burst damage as well. What you want to be doing essentially is baiting the opponents in to an area that you can lock down through a combination of your ground-based healing and your ground-based damage. If your opponents are fighting you in your house, then you've got the home field advantage, and you're very favoured in the engagement. However, if you're fighting sort of an open field where you're taking snipes and you're taking overload attacks from sorcerers and you're taking all sorts of things, you are very much disadvantaged. So what you want to do is Identify your target and use the terrain to force them to come to you. Once there, you can lock them down and very quickly take them out with the high burst that's been built into this build. So that's enough of me. I'll segue into some gameplay clips and I'll just talk over those as well to give you some more hints into my thought process while I'm playing this build. Okay, so in the first clip we find ourselves at Castle Brindle Mine. This seems to be a recurring theme in my videos apparently, but we've come to defend the flag from what seems to be a fairly meta pet sork who was trying to take it. Now, he is here in all of his glory, complete with Engine Guardian in tow, and as most people know, the Engine Guardian is very frustrating to fight against. It tends to eat a lot of attacks, a lot of potential burst gets wasted here. As you can see here, the Engine Guardian eats 2 of my Zahn procs back to back, so I may as well not be wearing a monster set fighting this guy, because his Engine Guardian is just soaking up all the damage. But we're holding our ground. The nice thing here is the sorcerer wants to take this flag, so he can't just streak away as soon as he starts losing the fight. So that's the only real advantage we have. So we're holding our ground, just going through our rotation. He's not threatening us too much. I mean, he's got decent burst obviously, but as long as we keep our buffs up and we are standing in our Winter's Respite, he's not really doing anything super threatening. So I'm kind of just biding my time here, waiting for his off-balance immunity to wear off, and I'll go in for a big burst combo at that point. And hopefully the Zahn actually hits him and not his freaking Engine Guardian. Here we go, we're going in, and he is not able to outshield the damage that we're putting into him. You can see just how much of a big spike in damage we get when the students procs. Good game. Next clip here is more of a slightly chaotic keep battle. I think this is Castle Fargo, and as you can see, blues have just blown the door open. Now this is definitely the time to go full vamp. You can see just how much AoE and how much siege is coming down, but the vampire form gives us a huge boost to our damage. We're able to just mow targets down one after the other with our charge followed by our jabs. Just a huge amount of AoE and really strong AoE survival as well. So our vamp wears off. We've managed to secure a couple of kills with it, but now we find ourselves in the middle, out in the open, with oil pouring down. So we use Mistform as a mobility tool, really useful to make your way through chaotic battles like this, and we go and address the oils that are pouring. We see that there's one allied blue here already, doing a good job, but we go in and just give him a hand. Light up this target here, drop an ultimate on him, and he goes down very quickly as well. Got a Necro left over here. Magicka Necro from the look of things. He's dropping a couple of dots down, getting very, very low there. He tries to make a break for it, but we keep on him, and the power of the light finishes him off. I think at this point we make our way up to the top of the clip, but I think I've not really included too much more from that fight, because it was a bit of a Zerg fest. The last clip here is a slightly longer clip. This is a lengthy fight that I've got here at one of the mines. I believe, one of the resources at Fort Arius, the Arius farm. I've sped up parts of this clip, and I've skipped parts of this clip as well, because it's a fairly long, drawn-out fight. And the real problem we have in this fight is that the Reds are just not wanting to engage. They're sitting on the flag, they're healing up the mage guard, but they don't want to come into the tower. They're coming in maybe one at a time. This guy starts to engage on me. I go up top just to see what we're dealing with. I drop some of my dots down. He's a fairly low level guy, so he goes down fairly quickly with the crescent sweep. As you can see, this clip actually is when I was testing Valkynscoria on this build. Now, Valkynscoria is a lot of fun. I ended up replacing it with Zahn for most of my sort of solo fights thereafter, but you can definitely do some work with Valkynscoria as well. The only problem is that you need to be paying quite close attention to when it's proccing, and that's when you want to toppling charge in and sort of execute your burst combo. So similar to Zahn, to be honest, in that regard, but it's a much more subtle telegraph, so you kind of need to stay on your toes. So here I go out to try and entice people to follow me back in, but these Reds really don't want to come into this tower, so eventually I end up going outside, and as soon as I do, they scatter to the winds. So I'm left here on the flag, clearing away the red minions, just hoping that someone will come and give me some entertainment. And I believe we do get obliged by a red over here. Yes, we do. What's this guy wanting to do? So I think this is a Stamina Templar, that's right. Stamina Templar with 2 snipers in tow. So we don't want to be fighting those 2 snipers out in the open. They can put a lot of burst damage into us from range, so we go upstairs, and somehow the snipers are still hitting me. But we go upstairs onto the middle balcony, and we get our house in place and start to engage these guys. This worker is a quick kill, and then we turn around and start focusing the Stamina Templar again. As you can see, while we're standing in our Winter's Respite and our ritual, his jabs really aren't doing very much damage to us at all. Unfortunately there, either due to lag or due to the fact that he was jumping while I stunned him, the stun actually put him out of range of the Crescent Sweep. But as you can see, these guys are not very aggressive, they're very, very passive actually. We start attacking this guy again. I've been a bit undisciplined here. I've not really been putting my elemental drain on the target as I should have, so we run slightly low on resources there for a second, but we have our pot available to remedy that. So these 2 guys are engaging me here on the middle floor. Not really doing anything super threatening. We start to engage this guy. This guy's busy swinging, but then realizes he has no health, so decides to roll off the edge to his doom. We've got 2 guys left here, this Templar and what appears to be a bow user. We turn and start attacking the bow user there, get a wee bit low on resources. So in this kind of situation what you can do is you can use your mist form and just line of sight and stall until you've got your potion up again. The mist form costs you next to nothing, and that's exactly what we choose to do here. Stamplar comes up top, starts to engage on us again. That turn evil stun is actually very difficult to break. But as you can see, when we start laying into him with our jabs, we do a lot more damage to him than he's been doing to us, and he goes down fairly quickly at that point. We're dropping down again and probably going to fast forward again because I go out to engage on the flag, and these guys are just not wanting to attack, man. This guy, I'm not sure what he's doing, but he goes down fairly quickly as well. One thing that's really annoying actually with the Malakath band is it becomes very frustrating to kill NPCs. Because you're not doing any critical damage, it actually takes you a lot longer to clear away these resource guards. So we're taking our time doing that, and the sniper is back. He catches us at a moment when we've expended most of our magic trying to kill these NPCs. So we do what we do best. We use some speed, some mobility just to line of sight behind this tree. This is still not enough cover. I think about going back into the tower, but I decide actually just to go into the barn just to finish off these NPCs. Go back out. Our detect pot is off cooldown. This guy is doing well to kite into that negate, and we can see there's a Magicka Nightblade on us as well, and another red prowling in the background too. We go into the tower just so that we can manage these a bit easier. But once again, they're just really not wanting to engage, which is quite frustrating actually. You have to really go out of your way to find a non-zergy, non-laggy fight, and then people just, even when they outnumber you 3 or 4 to 1, they just don't have any courage. So what we do is we drop down, we let the guys attack us a bit. Let's see if they want to get a bit more aggressive. They don't particularly, so I decide to go into my vampire form, pop my detect pot. This guy's doomed. He can't get away, he can't cloak away, and he's got far too many AoEs coming in, so he goes down quickly. My detect pot wears off just as this Magicka Nightblade decides to cloak, which is annoying. So we go back onto the guards and start jabbing away again. Eventually the Nightblade wants to engage, but as you can see, while we're standing in our Winter's Respite and in our Purifying Ritual, he's not really doing any damage to us. Our health bar is barely moving. The important thing is just to remember to keep those buffs up, because as soon as they do go down, you can see that my health does start to go down. So remember, be disciplined, keep up your drain, keep up your dots, finish up the ads, and then now it's this guy's turn. As soon as we do start to do some damage to him, he does go down pretty quickly as well. As you can see, we've got a lot of burst damage on this build. Really, really high burst damage. It's just more about making sure that you execute your burst at a good time. So here we've got a Stamina Dragonite on us. take it into the tower just so we see what we're dealing with, because obviously, as always, we're taking snipes. This guy's trying to dot us up, but we are able to cleanse off most of his pressure, get the off balance on him, and then supercharge our jabs. And he goes down really quickly as well. But here there's a bit of latency. I'm trying to hit my Mistform here. Mistform doesn't go off. And we end up going down. Anyway, that's the end of my clips. Thank you for watching. If you haven't, like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time.